Hi, my name is Ryan. This is not my real name, but the name I will use here for obvious reasons. I will not reveal anyone's real name, even if I know their real name or not. I am a 23-year-old guy from the UK, and I used to work on the deep web. Before you judge, let me make it clear that the deep web is not all bad stuff like people think. It is not just guns, drugs, and porn. That's not reality. It is mostly information leaks, software sharing, forums, and financial solutions. The deep web is a lot of things, but only a small part of what modern media describes. And with such a wide range of services, of course, the deep web also has a lot of job opportunities. I worked on it for a few years until I decided to quit. If you are curious why I stopped, that is a story for another time. But for now, I will start from the most logical starting point. I was a part-time university student. In between boring engineering classes, I worked part-time at McDonald's. This kept my life pretty busy, but in my spare time, I'd browse the deep web. There were a few forums that I frequented. They all revolved around world events that the mainstream media refuses to cover. These things interested me because I got to see a world that the media doesn't want us to know is real, you know? But gradually, I got into the community of one of those forums. I got to know a few people who were regular posters. Some of them were private investigators, investigative journalists, and some interesting people in their own way. What they all had in common was they all discovered things that they shouldn't have known, and they wanted to share that information. They used this forum to spread taboo findings. Now, I'm going to talk about M. I'll call him M. He's the revolutionary type who's always trying to prove conspiracy theories about governments, corporations. You know the type of people I'm talking about. The kind of people who are a bit crazy, I think. But what was different about M is that he had proof for his theories. He had evidence and sources. And my story today is about how I became one of those sources. It was a Sunday. I don't normally work on Sundays, so it was my day off. I spent some time wandering around both the regular internet and the deep web. When I checked the forum I mentioned, I saw a message from M. I trust M. He told me a lot about himself, and it was all trustworthy. So when he asked me anything, I answered honestly. This meant he knew what town I lived in, and it seemed like something was going on where I lived. I lived in a developing town, so there was always quite a lot of activity. But this information was not like the usual news. According to M, the local council was blackmailing a landowner to force him to sell his land for a development project. The landowner was a farmer who owned a large piece of land on the edge of the urban area. After reading it, I replied to M with the usual answer, "That's good, thanks for the information." But this time he texted back, "But there's something else. I don't know what they used to blackmail him, but it must be something terrible. That farmer made a lot of money from his land. There's no way he would agree to sell at the cheap price they offered." I felt curious, so I asked M if he could find out more. That's when he asked, "Yes, but are you willing to help me?" Up until now, I've only read this kind of news, but never actively sought it out. That's why M and I became good friends. But now that he asked me to join, I was at a crossroads. I closed the deep web browser without replying, which was quite rude, I know, but I really didn't know how to respond. I tried to focus on a new video game theory, but the thought of M's offer kept going through my head. Could I find some mysterious news? A conspiracy? I reopened the forum, temporarily muted the sound from M's, I assume this means M's video or a video, monotone voice, and replied, "M, what do you want me to do?" I waited with a feeling of suspense. He replied, "Just talk to him. Maybe take a few pictures. Nothing too difficult. These people are usually very willing to tell someone about their troubles." I looked at the message and pondered. Is there any danger I need to know about? I asked again. No danger. He doesn't have a gun license, so you don't need to worry. Just talk to him. M gave me the name and address of the farmer, but for safety reasons, I won't mention it here. While I was considering whether to accept, M sent another message. I will pay you. Give me your PayPal. I was stunned. I didn't expect M to pay his source. I slowly entered one of my PayPal emails. When working on the deep web, you need to have different emails to transfer money. £250 now, £250 after you give me the details. I almost fainted when I read that message. £500 for driving to a farmer's house and talking to him? That was too much. I replied right away, "Sure." Then I waited and refreshed the email from that PayPal account. Bam! Sent to you, Ryan. I forgot that I hadn't put a fake name for my last name, so I'll skip that part. Okay, I checked my PayPal account and made sure that £250 was there. Don't run away with my money, okay? I suddenly remembered I was talking to M. No, I'll come tomorrow night to see him. Do you want me to record it? I nervously waited for his response. No need, I trust you. If there's anything suspicious, I'll send another source to verify. He has another source in my town? Why did he choose me? I decided to save that question for another time and be grateful for the opportunity to make money. Very good, I ended the conversation by saying, see you tomorrow, M. Then I went to bed, though not really to sleep because I was too stressed with the thoughts swirling in my head. After school the next day, I drove to the farm. On the way, I could see the construction companies getting ready in the fields near the outer area. I turned onto the dirt road leading to the house, clearly feeling every bump because my car was completely unsuitable for this bumpy road. I locked the car and knocked on the front door. No one answered. My heart was pounding in my chest, my mind in turmoil with excitement. I knocked again, this time calling out, "Hello, sir?" I stopped, trying not to mention his last name. "Are you here? I came to discuss your land purchase agreement." I heard a slight noise from behind the door, then the sound of the door lock turning. The door opened only slightly, still fastened by the safety chain, but I could see his face. He had the typical appearance of an old English farmer, with a flat cap, and he looked cold. "What do you want to talk about?" he asked in a low, melancholy voice. "I came to discuss the circumstances of the deal and the disadvantages to you, sir." I carefully picked each word to let him know I was on his side. I wanted to know more about the situation. Maybe I could help. My confidence wavered a little by the end of the sentence. He looked unwell, but his sharp eyes made me nervous. His eyes softened. He opened the door and motioned for me to come in. I was wondering when some journalist would be interested, but I'll tell you straight, this is over, nothing more than the obvious. I sat down in his rustic living room, where I'm sure the furniture was older than he was, and that really says a lot. I'm not a journalist, sir, or at least I don't think I am in the conventional sense. Even though I was nervous, I tried to keep my composure. He seemed more interested in my answer. "Oh? Well?" he asked, the sadness on his face seeming to fade a little. Maybe that look was only for uninvited guests, and I had been clever enough to gain his trust. "Yes, please. Have some milk. No sugar." I waited until we were both comfortable, and then I asked him something. While he was busy making tea, I sat there wondering what the hell I was doing here. He set a cup of tea in front of me. The porcelain cup was so fragile, it looked like it was ready to break at any moment. I decided that maybe I wasn't really thirsty because it looked more expensive than just for drinking. "So, what do you care about me, young man?" He looked at me, his eyes filled with curiosity. "I've heard that your situation is due to some information being used against you." His face went pale with surprise and fear. "Yes. But how do you know that?" I was a little hesitant. thinking about how to answer. A friend of mine is concerned about your situation. He wants to know more to see if he can help. The old farmer looked down at his cup of tea for a moment. If I say anything, don't let the police know. My heart stopped for a moment. What did this old man do that made him so wary he didn't dare let the police know? Maybe my face reflected my thoughts, because after glancing at me, he sighed and began to explain. My wife was a very gentle woman. She would never hurt anyone. But a few months ago, a group of drunken young men from the city broke into the house. We both woke up. My wife signaled me to be quiet. Then she opened the safe under the bed and took out a gun. I interrupted him. "But I heard you don't have a gun license." His face turned a little red. "No, it wasn't me, young man. It was my wife. She still does most of the work here." She took out the gun and opened the door. I don't know what happened, but I heard the gunshot. The old man started crying, putting his head in his old hands. I didn't know what to say. "Sir, what happened after that?" He wiped his tears and looked back at me, his voice shaky. We hid them and buried them. The police found them, and soon someone from the city council came and said if we don't sell the land, we'll be prosecuted for murder." He sighed heavily. "But why don't you go public? They broke into your house. It must be self-defense." He looked at me with a cold look. "Those kids, they were the mayor's sons. If I go public, I'll be arrested. If I don't sell..." My heart almost choked. I stood up. "Thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I'll see if I can help." He stood up, his face a sad smile. "Let me see you out." As I walked to the door, I saw his wife standing there, a gun in her hand. She wasn't as old as him, but not young. She stepped aside and glared at me coldly. As soon as the door opened, I almost ran to the car, fumbling to get the key in the lock, and drove home. I sat in front of the computer, still shaking from the meeting, typing up the news. My heart was still pounding. I felt like if I had said one wrong thing, I would have died in that house. M replied quickly, quite surprised by the length of the message. "Good story, Ryan. People will love it. I will see what I can do for the poor couple and you too. Consider the dangers. I sent the rest of the money plus a little bonus. Sorry, I didn't know his wife had a gun." I checked PayPal. Another £600 was transferred into my account. Unbelievable! Is this a joke? The deal was only £250, I typed in haste. Turns out the story is more interesting than I thought. I will contact you again, Ryan. I let the conversation end there for the day. I just made £850 by talking to an old man about a murder. What was going on? Well, that was the first job I ever did on the deep web, and also what started this whole mess. I would explain more, but it's late now, and I need a break. Let's just say, that wasn't the last I heard from M, and definitely not the last job I've gotten on the deep web. I'm going to focus on M and his jobs first, because that's the majority of what I have to tell, but I may later talk about some of the other jobs I've gotten from other people along the way. Now, good night, everyone. Another sleepless night. Hi, everyone. It's Ryan again. It seems like you guys liked my last post quite a lot. It got a lot of attention, which is both good and bad. A few of my old contacts on the deep web found the post and responded. I just hope I don't get pulled back into this mess because it was already too hard to get out of it. And there's another thing. I usually call it the deep web, as most people I talk to call it that. I know a lot of people call it the darknet or the dark web, but I still like to call it the deep web. Sorry if that offends you. It's not exactly accurate, but most people know the name. And yes, I live in the UK. All this is happening in the UK. People can still own guns here. It's just not common, usually used mainly by farmers. Before continuing the story, I'm not sure how M knew where I lived. He guessed, and I confirmed. I still don't know how he guessed. I wish I could ask him, but it's too late now. Back to the story. A few weeks after I started working for M, I spent that time on a shopping spree on Amazon, thanks to his generous money. This included a new laptop and a bunch of other things. I tried to keep this spending under wraps, but it's hard to hide when you have a new laptop. The situation was midterm break. I got a week off, and I got paid from work as usual. I spent hours wandering around the internet. I started a new hobby of researching the elderly couple M sent me to meet. Usually I don't find much about them, but on the deep web, I found some interesting information. Turns out the old lady, I'll call her Janice, had a criminal record for assault and intentional injury. This conviction wasn't from when she was young. It was only about 12 years ago. She got a fine and community service. I wanted to dig deeper, but then I thought, I know someone who is a professional in this field, right? I sent Em a message asking if he knew anything more. Unlike usual, I didn't get a response from him right away. When he replied, he just texted, "We need to talk, but not now." This made me a little self-conscious. Did I find out anything noteworthy? The assault charges weren't anything too. The events in the previous post still confused me. That woman killed 2 kids, and she was just standing there? No way I want to go near that place again. I feel sorry for the old man, but the sooner I get away from them, the better. A few hours later, M texted me back. "There's more to this story. I've been looking at some news in town. The mayor's son wasn't the only missing child in the past few years." My mind was racing. The first thought that came to my mind was that the old lady could be a serial killer or something. She seemed capable of it. All the missing people were teenagers whose parents were in positions of power in town. He sent a message with a link to a file-sharing site. It had pictures from police missing person reports. Not sure how he got these documents, but right away I saw a common pattern. The mayor's son, the daughter of a local businessman, the police chief's son, they all had a clear connection. So what does this mean? Because there's no way I'm going back to that damn house, especially now that I know this. I typed, a feeling of dread growing inside me, but I still couldn't help but feel excited about this discovery. "I'll have my other source meet you. Pick the place and time. I know you have the week off." How the he know that? I told him myself, but like I said, we were best friends. I met M's other source, Jacob, at a coffee shop in town. I brought a friend along, just to be safe. Jacob is a professional photographer who works full-time for M. I don't know what that specifically means, but it's probably better not to ask. When I confirmed he was real, I told my friend he could go. Jacob was a scruffy man in his 30s. The easiest way to describe him is if you saw him, you'd think he'd just walked on off the street. He even smelled like it. "Now, we work together," he spoke with an Eastern accent. I'm not into accents, so I can't say where it came from. "Do you have a car?" he asked, his eyes never changing. "Yes, it's parked right in front." "Let's take that car to the farm to watch Mrs. Farmer." I nodded slowly, not sure if I had the right to refuse or not. "Good, let's go now. I hate coffee. It gives me a stomach ache." I nodded, unable to protest. The drive out of town had me pretty shaky. I was heading back there, and I wasn't even sure how much I was going to get paid. In my haste, I forgot to ask M about the pay. The construction work on the edge of the couple's farm had expanded a bit. I could see the foundation being laid by a group of workers in reflective vests. I slowed down. I drove past the road that led up to the main house, instead taking another road that was a little more desolate and led to an abandoned barn on the couple's land. I parked out of sight of the barn, and Jacob started busying himself with the bag he brought along. He took out a couple of very expensive-looking cameras and started setting them up in the left rear window of the car, aimed at the barn and the field behind the bushes. The barn gave off a claustrophobic and menacing feeling. Jacob didn't seem to sense this, but he was an expert after all. "We put sensors in the field so we know when the old lady comes around. You lock the car. If my camera gets stolen, I'll kill you." He looked at me with a half-serious look. I smiled back. We walked around the farm carrying small GoPro-like cameras with antennas. Every now and then we would stop and set up a camera somewhere, usually pointed at the barns or sheds. After about an hour, it was almost dark. "We need to put sensors there. You're younger. Go put them," Jacob said. I looked at him with a horrified expression, but his expression made it clear it wasn't a suggestion. I took one of the sensors and crawled towards the bushes that surrounded the house, my heart pounding as I crouched down in the mud. I placed one sensor in a bush, pointing towards the front door. The house wasn't that big, so I snuck behind it pretty quickly. I saw a figure appear in the ground floor window and stopped. Damn it, I almost peed myself. A back door of the house had a thatched roof. The sensor should pick up movement from the bushes, but there was no guarantee. I had to get closer. I slowly and painfully dragged myself through the bushes, tearing my new jeans in the process. I sneaked around the back and found a small garage with a half-open roll-up door. I approached with the caution of a soldier in enemy territory. The garage was filled with years of clutter. I set the sensor inside facing the back door of the main house. I was just about to go back when I heard the back door open. My heart dropped out of my chest. In a panic, I climbed onto a fallen wardrobe and hid behind it. The garage smelled of trash, but that was no longer my concern. The old lady came out into the backyard carrying a bag of trash. I breathed a sigh of relief when I saw her throw the bag into a large trash can and then turn around and go back into the house. I waited a long time before leaving the garage and returning to Jacob. "What took you so long? It's just a sensor. It's not rocket science," Jacob said, giving me a mocking smile. I'm sure he was joking, but my nerves weren't calm enough to joke around. We walked back to the car in silence. When we got there, Jacob took out a laptop and started working. Every now and then, I heard a beep from the computer speakers, which jolted me out of my sleep. "All the sensors are working fine. Now let's go. You go to sleep first. I'll wake you up if needed." I responded with a hum. I was half awake and didn't wait for his permission to fall completely asleep. I don't know how long I slept until I was woken up. "Hey, old lady is moving. Get up, you idiot." His deep voice pulled me out of my sleep without any courtesy. "What?" I asked, my mind still not fully awake. He kicked the chair from the seat behind. She was walking this way. This made me much more awake. I turned to look at Jacob's laptop screen illuminated by his face. "Where's she now?" He closed the laptop and pointed out the window on the left. "She just passed the tree line and is heading towards the abandoned barn." I crouched down in the chair, praying she wouldn't see the car. I wished I had bought a less flashy car. Red doesn't blend in with the bushes. "She disappeared into the barn." Jacob looked at me. This time, he seemed just as nervous as I was. "You crouch down, I'll go ahead. Leave the keys in the car. If she sees us, run." We both opened the car doors, being careful not to make a sound. Jacob took the lead, sneaking around like a ninja following the shadows. It was obvious this wasn't the first time he had done this. As we got to the wall of the barn, he walked to a low window and pointed the camera inside, then lowered it and looked at the screen. "Let's go in," he whispered, his voice barely audible. I followed Jacob through an empty doorway where there had clearly been no door for a long time. The warehouse was actually empty, but from a far corner there was a light shining up that seemed to be coming from under the floorboards. As we got closer, I saw a trapdoor in the floor was open, with steps leading down. Jacob motioned for me to hide behind a rusted tractor. Then he picked up a pebble from the floor and threw it towards the far wall, making a loud thud. I stared into his eyes. Panic was evident on his face, but Jacob just looked at me calmly, his finger to his lips, signaling silence. Immediately, the light went out, and I heard the old lady walking up the stairs. From the corner of my eye, I saw her look around the warehouse before turning back to the trap door. I heard the trapdoor slam shut, followed by a metallic sound and her hurried footsteps leaving the warehouse. Jacob and I sat in silence for another half hour before daring to move. Jacob took out his phone and looked at an app he had installed with the sensors. "She's gone." We both sighed in relief. I felt ready to collapse or run to the car and drive as far as I could. We both stood up and approached the trapdoor. There was a shiny new lock on it, standing out against the dull, dead wood. "Hold this," Jacob mumbled, handing me his camera. He was busy with the lock for a few minutes. I couldn't see what he was doing, but I heard a metallic click. Then he slowly opened the trap door. Jacob took out his flashlight and shined it into the darkness below. At that moment, I felt an instinctive fear, like staring at a pack of hungry wolves. I really didn't want to go down there. Jacob seemed unfazed. He started down immediately. He looked back at me. Just trust me. Trust a man I just met as he led me into a spooky hole in a murderous old lady's abandoned shed. What a great idea! His eyes were still on me. "Do you want to get paid?" he said, in a low voice. "Okay, if I'm bad, then at least it's for money." I walked down into the threatening darkness, following Jacob. We reached the bottom of the stairs and entered a small room with a desk, a pinboard full of papers, and a door in the corner. The stench hit my nose before I could see anything clearly. It smelled like death. Jacob started taking pictures of almost everything, then handed me a flashlight. "Here, look at that board. See if there's anything worth taking a picture of." I went to the pinboard and started going through the pins. There were news reports about missing children, some pictures of them, and reports about the town expanding into the surrounding farmland. Among them were handwritten notes in ornate handwriting, saying things like "met at X" or "lived at X, point Y." This old woman was watching those kids, picking the right moment to strike. "Boo!" Jacob put his hand on my shoulder. I jerked back to look at him as he backed away with a smile. "I'm just kidding. I'm done. Let's go." I wasn't going to argue. We got back to the car and Jacob reviewed the footage on his laptop. "What was behind that door?" I asked, a hint of nosiness in my voice. "It's best if you don't know. You did good. Now let's go. Listen, I'll come back tomorrow to get the sensors." Seems like less is more in this case. I started driving back to town, passing that damn house on the way. I dropped Jacob off in some suburb and continued driving back to my apartment. I was dead tired. Before leaving, Jacob handed me a piece of paper with an email address on it, saying, "You're good. Text me when you need me. I'll call if I need your help again." I'm not sure what I did to help, but apparently I did well because he also gave me a thick envelope. When I opened it, I saw it was full of 20-pound notes. I took it home. I counted them. 1,000 pounds. I'm starting to think this might be a good job. No questions asked, get my job done, and get paid. Jacob was right. It was the right idea to work for M. However, I'm still curious about what's behind that door. Not that I intend to find out for myself. On the contrary, I think I've had enough experience with that damn farm. But I've never known where that smell was coming from. So, that's it. No more stories to tell. It took me hours to write this, and I've been pretty busy lately, especially with my old contacts popping up asking all sorts of things. Maybe it was a bad idea to go public with all this, at least about my work with M. Let's see. Maybe I'll write a third part, maybe not. Anyway, the next few days I'll be pretty busy, so don't expect anything big. Now I'm going to go to bed and try to forget the past, although I doubt I can. I'm about to have another sleepless night. Hello everyone, it's Ryan again. Since the last post, things have gotten a little more tense. Until I'm sure I'm safe, I won't be able to write about my job with M. I'm going to leave the city for a while, just in case something happens. I have a few friends up north. I'm staying with them for a while, just hoping they have decent Wi-Fi. After some consideration, I thought it best to talk about some less dangerous jobs. So today, I'm going to talk about another job. I hope you like it. Before I met M, I used to buy gift cards on the deep web, mainly Amazon cards, which were quite cheap. Hey, I also shop there a lot, so it's a win-win, right? This got me interested in buying and selling goods on the deep web. It turns out you can buy CPUs, computer processors, for much cheaper than on Amazon. A popular service is selling Apple products from stolen components in the production line. To clarify, I never bought those things. At that time, I was still quite short of money and found it a bit risky. But the process of that phone going from China to the recipient's door made me quite curious. I did a little research and found out that there were a few people who received deliveries. My brother quickly became friends with one of them thanks to the same passion for gaming. And even more special, that person was a girl, which was rare at that time. I will call her Laura, after the name of our favorite childhood game. She drove packages from anonymous delivery points to the buyer's house. Her job was freelance. She had an organization that regularly hired her, but still took work from other places when that organization had less work. Her job was interesting. She never knew what was in the package, who the recipient's name was, or who the sender was. She simply drove from point A to point B without asking questions. But this job also meant she had to maintain absolute confidentiality, so she was quite introverted, only going out when work was needed. I think I'm getting a little carried away. Then it was Christmas, and apparently she was quite busy and had taken a job that she couldn't do herself. Giving up a job after taking it, especially on the deep web, is not a good thing. I asked her what she was up to, but all her other contacts were busy, so she was kind of out of options. And that's when she said the sentence that really piqued my interest in the deep web. "Can you do it for me? Of course, I'll pay you." Now, let me tell you, that made me feel like a kid on Christmas. It was so fitting at the time. I asked her for the details of the job. It turned out the pickup point was in the next town over, and all I had to do was drive 15 miles to make the delivery. And it was done. I accepted, excited about getting to test drive my new but not so new car. 2 days passed. My excitement about the job was growing. By the time I got up at 5 a.m., jumped in the car and started driving to the delivery location, which was a fast food joint in the city center. I would find the package in the disabled restroom. Thinking back, that phrase sounded like a confusing metaphor. This fast food joint was a pretty dirty place that only had customers, mainly from drunks or needy people. I walked into the restroom and into the disabled stall. There was indeed a small brown package about the size of a DVD case sitting behind the toilet. I quickly grabbed it, put it in my backpack, and left the dirty place. Got in the driver's seat. I started entering the recipient's postcode and started the early morning drive. Stupidly, I took the freeway again and ended up stuck in traffic. This gave me plenty of time to think about the package. It was only the size of a DVD case, so what could be inside? Was it a DVD? Could it be some kind of violent movie? I know people spend a lot of money to buy that sick on the deep web. The thought disgusted me. I turned up the car radio trying to relax to some Christmas music. Nonsense and confused thoughts. I guess the package must be something small and valuable, otherwise why buy from the deep web? Could it be jewelry or drugs? Both are high value, right? However, the package was quite heavy for its size, so I suspected, now it's not drugs. Maybe stolen gold? I had no clue, but my logical mind was constantly grinding away. Maybe I should open it up just to take a quick look. It was sealed with brown tape. I could reseal it. Surely there's a store on the street that sells tape. As my usual curious nature took over, I finally decided to open the smallest end of the package, hoping the contents could slide out so I could put them back without leaving a trace. Sitting in the traffic jam, I took out my box cutter from the glove compartment and cut the tape. I gently opened one side of the box, as cautious as if I were disarming a bomb, then glanced inside. Inside there were layers of bubble wrap. I pulled it out. I saw 6 bottles containing white powder and a handwritten note on lined paper behind it. I moved the car a little and continued to examine the receipt. Cancel immediately upon confirmation. Do not save any. KSCN? 10G bottle? Priority delivery. Express price paid. £400 GBP. Delivery fee. £50 GBP. This immediately gave me the creeps. What is KSCN? I decided I'd seen enough and carefully put everything back. The package was almost the same as before, except for the tape that had been cut. I had time, so I went online to check KSCN on my phone and realized how lucky I was not to have gone near those bottles. Knowing what was inside turned my excitement into fear. Maybe knowing less is better in situations like this. Finally getting out of the traffic jam, I stopped at a convenience store, bought some tape, and carefully resealed the package. It looked like new after I finished. I continued driving through the suburban roads until I reached the address. I rang the bell holding the package as instructed. I had to ask for a person named Miss White. A woman holding a child opened the door. "I have a package." I had just said half a sentence when she shouted, "Someone with a package for this guy," then turned inside with a half smile. Heavy footsteps approached the door. "Thank you. Merry Christmas," a tall bearded man said. His face looked happy, but there was something in his eyes, something sad. Before I could say anything else, the door closed. I got back in the car and started the tiring drive home, this time determined not to take the freeway. When I got home, I sat down at my old laptop and texted Laura. "Mission complete," I wrote, pretending to be happy. All I felt was worry and confusion. I really regretted opening that package. "Why? I got the signal from the customer. Thank you for your help. I put the money in your PayPal. Don't spend it all right away." I checked and there was £30 in my account. I knew the other person paid £50, but if I said anything, she'd know I secretly opened the package. "Thanks. Merry Christmas," I replied with a small smile. Not bad for driving a few hours, but I still preferred my day job. The only thing at McDonald's that has questionable ingredients is the food, and I work at the drive-thru, so I don't have to deal with that either. Hope this story satisfies you guys until I'm confident enough to talk about work with M. Things are getting tense. If I stop posting, I'm fine, just lurking for a while. Going public with all this is attracting unwanted attention from people I thought I was getting away from. So hopefully it's worth it. I have a promise to keep next time, and until then, this whole damn situation is going to give me another sleepless night. Hi everyone, Ryan here again. In my last post, I said things were getting tense, and I'm out of town now to deal with some things. I've received a lot of threats for talking about this, but I think I've covered my tracks well enough, so I'm safe. Though I can't help but feel like someone is following me. Maybe it's just paranoia, but ignore that. I'll be fine. Time to continue my story. After the second time I went back to the farm, I decided I'd never go there again, no matter how much I was paid. Yes, I liked the £1,000 I got. Yes, I'm curious, but I want to live, and going back there would take decades off my life. If the old lady hadn't shot me, I'd probably die of heart failure. M has been busy investigating this. I've texted him a few times, but only gotten short replies. I can't stop worrying about him. All this is... something is wrong, not just because of the murderous old lady. I decided to find out for myself. Can I help M? Really? Because not knowing is frustrating, but knowing might kill me. Anyway, I started by looking back at the missing children cases. The online records showed the mayor's 2 children went missing a few months ago, but according to the farmer, she shot them just a few weeks ago. So either the old man was lying, or the children went missing before they showed up at the farm. The other children all went missing within 2 months of each other. All the same story. They went out to meet friends or attend an event and never came back. No trace, no clues, no witnesses. They were all closed cases. All were children of powerful people. So, kids of powerful people went missing, then 2 showed up at the farm, shot dead, and suddenly the person who shot them was being blackmailed by those powerful people? Maybe the old woman wasn't really at fault. But what's going on? It's been about 2 months since the last disappearance. Are there any more missing children? If so, who are they? Why is M so good at this? More importantly, how does he have the money to pay others? Does he have a boss? All these thoughts just make me more confused. A lot of questions with no answers. But there are also questions that you really don't want answers to. If that old lady didn't commit the murders, then why did she have that pin board? Maybe she was trying to find out the truth too. I thought of Jacob. I emailed Jacob asking if he had a picture of the pin board and also asked him to contact me via email if anything came up. An answer came pretty fast. Ryan, I have the pictures but can't show you. M asked you, not me. Thanks for leaving your email. I'll let you know if anything. You're a good kid. I sighed, frustrated. I could ask M, but he definitely wouldn't agree. I don't want to go behind his back, and Jacob is his man. But Jacob, I'm investigating the same case as M. Please, I really need those pictures. I'll pay you. Ironically, I was going to pay Jacob with the same money he just paid me. Ryan, I uploaded the pictures. Here's the link. The link will expire after 5 minutes. Fast download. You owe me a job. With Jacob, it's hard to argue, especially when it involves me not losing money. I quickly went to the link and downloaded the pictures. It was a regular internet link, so I was pretty sure the files were safe. I studied the pictures carefully, trying to find out every bit of information I could. I looked at the pictures for a few hours. I didn't get very far, but I found out that all the kids were involved in drugs. Not the hard kind, just weed, some mild drugs. I guess when you have rich parents, you can afford to spend money on that crap. How the old lady knew this is completely beyond my understanding. But really, everything about that witch is incomprehensible. The 2 kids who broke into the shelter turned out to be weed dealers. They were dealing in town, but where they got the drugs from is still a mystery. The others seemed to be just users. These kids also frequented the same bars, restaurants, and stores. It seems they are all friends. Despite this new information, I still don't have any idea what the hell is going on. A group of drug addict friends suddenly disappear one by one, then 2 of them break into an old lady's house. Who is watching them all? This is confusing, and I'm still nowhere near any clear answers. I decided to look into the drug ring in the town, and the best way I know how? You guessed it, deep web. I went back to the usual forum and started asking around, pretending to be a buyer. I found a local retailer and arranged to meet under the pretext of wanting to buy some weed. I had no idea what weed costs or how much to buy, so I asked for 2 joints. Do kids still say joints? After a short drive into the town center, I met the guy in a block of flats. He was waiting in the lobby. I had £500, not to buy drugs, but to find answers. I greeted him with a handshake as agreed. I'm not to describe him, so he's a human with hands, and that's all I'll say. Okay, after talking for a while, I gave him the money and said a drug dealer had been giving a friend of mine trouble, and I wanted to know who he was. He told me about the local dealers. Apparently, a businessman with a missing child had siphoned off business money to run a deep web drug ring in town. He didn't know much about the boss, only knew that he was dealing on the deep web. He also said he knew 2 dealers had gone missing recently. No one did it. They just disappeared. I thanked him and went home. Is that what M's job is like? It was quite nerve-wracking. The whole situation was still completely messed up, but actually finding out something almost made it worth it. I didn't buy weed. He actually smoked it all, said that revealing the information made him nervous. But apparently £500 can buy some useful information. So, a group of drug addict friends with powerful parents who can protect them, and they run a drug ring on the deep web, with the mayor, the sheriff, and a businessman helping. And the kids themselves, they can run a safe operation. And anyone who tries to interfere, just look at that old couple. I thought of M, and what he might know. Maybe he can help me. I drafted a message full of the information and the source I found. It took about an hour to write. He responded faster than the last time. Oh my God, Ryan, You've done my job. I've been trying to find out those things too, but being so far away, I can't compile the facts as fast. I was actually going to ask you to do my job again, but now I don't need to. Good job, buddy. I'll get to work on finding out more. In the meantime, you stay put. I did a little more digging, and to put it simply, there are some dangerous people behind this. Is the old account for your payment right? I'm confused. Did I find out more than him? These people are dangerous. I know they attacked the old lady, but where does it go from here? I was thinking, I almost forgot M just offered to pay. I said yes, and good luck. And then my account had another £900 in it. Oh my God. Including expenses, it's only about £400, but still a good amount. And he dared to risk continuing the investigation. M warned, well, that's it. Before I write the next part, I need to make sure some people are okay with me mentioning them. Anyway, this information is quite, illegal, but I can ask their permission tomorrow, because first money is smart money. Also, I haven't spent all the money M paid me, so there's still some left over for bribes. Almost finished with the next part. I'm sorry for the long story, but there are many factors involved, and most of them I can't control. Hopefully you'll see me again in part 4. Until then, I'm going to bed and having another sleepless night. Hello everyone. Again, it's me, Ryan. I said in my last post that this would be pretty much the end of the story, and it did wrap things up. But recently, something has happened that has me really wondering if I'll find out the truth. You guys seem to be worried about my safety, and I can assure you that I'm safe right now. I'm posting these posts over public Wi-Fi outside my house using a VPN. My location is almost untraceable. I really appreciate your concern. It's nice to know someone is paying attention. It's time to continue the story. I'm in a bind. This situation just keeps grabbing me. Despite the underlying creepiness, I still want to know more. M told me to lay low. I guess that also means staying away from the deep web. I've stayed off the internet for a while, trying to get back to normal. I've been trying to focus on my studies at school and my part-time job as if nothing's wrong. But actually, there's something very, very wrong. My feeling of insecurity has been increasing ever since I met that drug dealer. Not only did I pay for information, I also paid him to keep quiet. The old lady had obviously been attacked. I didn't want to risk that. I thought it was time I took a break out of town for a while. I contacted some relatives and offered to take my grandmother to visit them for a week. My family rarely gets together, and there are not many opportunities for everyone to be together anymore. I drove to the nursing home on the edge of town to pick her up, her familiar perfume still wafting. Seeing her again made me almost forget my situation. As I drove out of town, I passed the construction site. You could see the frame and roof of the future residential area. And as I drove further, I passed that damned farm. Leaving town was a relief. For obvious reasons, I couldn't say much about the trip. The last thing I needed was for my family to be dragged into this. My grandmother stayed with my relatives, and I started driving home at night to avoid traffic. I had told school and work I was off, saying there was a family emergency. But as I got closer to town, I saw a different kind of emergency. The road near the farm was blocked, blue lights flashing everywhere. I stopped, and a policeman came up. "This road is blocked." "I want to go into town." "Turn around and take the next 2 turns," he said. I looked at him with astonishment. "What's the matter, sir?" I asked. "Nothing, son, just—" I told him I used to visit the man who lived here. I don't know what happened to him. Then the policeman's expression seemed to change and become sympathetic. I sat in the local police station. I'll call the policeman who was talking to me Sergeant Church. He asked me if I knew anything about the couple. Did I know anything about what might have happened? The fact that they were killed was said to be a gas explosion, but I didn't believe it, and from the tone of his voice, Church didn't believe it either. For obvious reasons, I couldn't say much. I made up a story that my grandmother knew the old man, and I came in from time to time visiting. He believed it right away. I was just a nice kid visiting an old couple. Then he started talking about the explosion, asking me if I had ever smelled anything strange in the house. Did I have any suspicions about the cause? I said they were careful people, and the old man was a good repairman who could maintain most things in the house himself. Of course, that was all a lie. But the real lie was that their deaths were an accident. "Thank you for your help, son. I know this must be hard for you." He wrote his phone number in a notebook, then tore the paper off and gave it to me. "If you need help or remember anything, call me." I thanked him and left. Sitting in front of my laptop, I decided to check how M was doing. But he had contacted me before I had the chance. I had almost 20 emails from him. He knew it all. Clearly, Jacob had been guarding those places again when it all happened. M thought they would come to me or Jacob next. But Jacob was the professional, and I was out of town. We were both relatively safe at the moment. But the good news is, Jacob tracked the attacker back into town with a GPS tracker on his car. He parked at a warehouse in the industrial area of town. "Sounds like a horror movie, Ryan. I know you've risked a lot for this, but I can't send Jacob. All I need for you to go in and identify anyone there. If you can identify one of the missing children or their parents, we can bust the whole thing open. I'm in too deep." "You're going to pay me handsomely for this. Those guys are murderers," I replied, my mind a jumble of fear and anger. £50,000 if you go in, identify, and take pictures with whatever you have." I sat there staring at the screen, thinking. The drive to the warehouse was full of suspense and potential danger. I hated this, hated what I had to do, and hated that something inside me felt excited. I parked the car away from the warehouse and started walking, hiding in the shadows under the moonlight. If I got caught, I didn't want to think about it. I was standing in front of the warehouse. This is where all the information led. I walked around behind some containers lined up next to a ladder that ran along the building. I tried the ladder. The last thing I wanted was to make a bunch of noise. Making sure it didn't make any noise, I started climbing. My heart was pounding. I reached the roof, lying face down, slowly moving towards a skylight. It was covered by some kind of foil. Damn it. I saw the roof entrance on the opposite corner. I carefully crawled over, being careful not to make any noise. I heard footsteps and voices inside the warehouse just below. I glanced over the edge of the roof and saw two guys in black talking. I was sure one of them had a gun. This was crazy. I pulled out my phone, making sure the flash was off. I took a picture in the low light. Just a vague silhouette could be seen. I crouched down in front of the door that would lead me into the warehouse. It was a fire escape. I saw the alarm mechanism was installed in the corner. Luckily, being an electrical engineering student, I knew how to disable it. I carefully cut the power and opened the door. It opened slowly and silently. I stood at the top of the stairs, a feeling of panic starting to rise. I crouched down and looked down the stairs into the warehouse. I saw bright lights and the same foil on the skylights. I followed the stairs, keeping myself pressed against the wall. I saw the biggest marijuana farm I had ever seen. Plants covered the floor of the warehouse. The light was bright and heated, even with the cold wind blowing in from the fire escape. I was sweating. Of course, not entirely from the heat. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures. A few people were walking between the plants. Some of them had handguns, and a few others had machetes. This was the craziest thing I had ever seen. Then I recognized a few familiar faces sitting at a table on the far side of the warehouse. Those were the missing children. I think they were involved in the activity, but obviously not willing participants as they were tied to the chairs. A guard sat next to them. The phone camera couldn't get a clear shot from that distance. I had to go down the stairs and take a picture from the guard's path between the plants. It was crazy. I groped my way down to the bottom of the stairs. I was in a corner and there was a wall around 3 sides, so it was relatively private, but if any of them decided to go up to the roof, I was screwed. I had to do it fast. I got to the bottom of the stairs and lay face down. I almost got the shot. Then I had to go out a bit to take it. I waited for the guards to get away from the stairs, got up, and quickly took several pictures. Only a few were really clear. Then I slipped back into hiding, trying my best to control my panic breathing. I really did it! I started to climb back up the stairs when I heard footsteps approaching. I quickly crawled up to the door and carefully closed it. I rounded the corner from the roof entrance, back into the cold wind of the night. I heard the guard step onto the roof. Clearly, the door alarm had never been properly connected. I heard a cigarette lighter and footsteps coming up the stairs. A few guards were standing in front of my only exit, talking to each other. I pulled out my phone and started recording video. I couldn't see them, but what was important was what they were saying. At this point, I can't reveal their conversation, but eventually I will reveal everything. I stood there, frozen in fear. I had to leave this roof. The building was about 2 stories high, and the ground below was concrete, but there was an open trash can in the back. The only thing was, the back wall was right against the warehouse wall. I would have to jump down, praying to God I landed in the trash can. I put my phone in my pocket and braced myself. I jumped. The indescribable feeling of fear and excitement came over me as I fell. It was strange. I thought I was going to die. But the feeling of falling was almost exciting. I landed in the trash can with a slight bump. It made a noise, but better than screaming if I hit concrete. However, when I landed, I felt a sharp pain in my leg. Tears welled up. I bit my hand to keep from screaming. I must have sprained my ankle. I crawled out of the trash can, smelling just like Jacob. Maybe that smell is part of his job. Anyway, I trudged back to the car. I had actually made it. I got in the car and drove home in pain. Despite the pain in my leg, I decided to take a shower first. I went to A&E, Accident and Emergency. I didn't look like a homeless person, thankfully. My leg didn't seem broken, but it was pretty swollen, and I also had bruises down my right leg and arm from the fall. This would be hard to explain. I plugged my phone into my laptop and sent the pictures and videos over. I saved them in multiple places just in case. I drove to A&E. It took about 2 hours to get examined. I sat there nervous as hell. The doctor finally bandaged my leg and prescribed medicine. It turned out my leg was pretty badly sprained, and I had to walk very gently. Considering the fall, I could have been much worse. I went home. I sent everything to M. I waited for his response with bated breath. "You really did a great job. I didn't think the kids would be found, let alone the farm. Well done, Ryan. I will transfer the money to a few accounts to avoid suspicion. Text me the details when you can." And I did. Yes, the last payment was £5,000. This is crazy. If this information is worth that much, what the hell am I getting myself into? I decided to try and get some rest. I had done my part and got the money. I had to rest my leg and lay still. It was the best decision, but in the back of my mind I kept thinking that night, I had another long, sleepless night, so here it is. For now, as you can guess, the people I need permission from are my family, although I think I can skip that part. But I need to describe everything that happened so I don't get suspected of being somewhere I wasn't. Actually, I will prepare the next part carefully so as not to offend unrelated people, because these posts have attracted the attention of the authorities, believe it or not. And with the information I announced today, don't be surprised if I don't post anymore. As you guys said, I'm either crazy or extremely brave, and courage is not my strong point. If there is a next time, tonight could be my last sleepless night. Update. It's strange that when I posted this, Reddit's server was interrupted. I was alone in my apartment for days, without going to school or work. I got caught up in finding out what was going on with that warehouse. Em and I investigated and found out that the warehouse was owned by the businessman whose son had also gone missing, and that son was being held in that warehouse. We guessed he was being held for blackmail. M just finished his final report to post on the forum, but strangely, he emphasized that the police were not aware and everyone had to remain anonymous, which is rare for him. When I asked why, he just said, because this wasn't a normal case. I worried about him. I also felt like I was being watched constantly. I saw strangers on the street, and they quickly left when I noticed them. M sent me the final draft of the report, still keeping everyone's names anonymous, just in case it got worse. I'm really starting to get worried. Jacob also contacted me about an upcoming job. I'll have to answer to him because I owe him one. What M and I found out is that someone is blackmailing the sheriff, the mayor, and a local businessman, the people who own the warehouse where the kids are being held. The mayor's kids were killed when they broke into the elderly couple's house, and the couple was also killed by someone else, possibly because they knew too much. The warehouse was being used as a drug farm, with drugs being sold over the deep web and delivered by couriers. This is most of what we could find out. Based on Laura's testimony, it seems the two kids that the old lady shot used to run the business, but after they died, I don't know who was in charge. And now that the old lady is dead, I can't ask her what she knows. But there might be something in the basement there to help me. I really don't want to go back to that damn farm, but my options are getting slimmer, and this seems to be the only way to find out more. I got in the car and drove the familiar road to the farm. As I left the suburbs, I could see the construction work encroaching on the old couple's land at a faster pace. The first few houses seemed to be finished. The light from the windows shone in the night sky. I felt sorry for them. Even though I thought the old lady was guilty, it turns out she was just a victim all this time. I still don't understand what her motives were. I drove near the barn, up the old dirt road. As always, I turned off the engine and got out. Something was wrong. The barn. It looked like it had been broken into. The doors were still on their hinges, but were wide open and stuff was strewn everywhere. I didn't like this at all. I entered cautiously, looking through an open door on the side of the warehouse towards the cellar in the corner. I could hear voices coming from inside. I slowly went in, hiding behind a tractor of some sort. It looked like it had been turned upside down, like they were looking for something. The light was coming from the cellar. The voices got louder as I got closer. I crawled close to the ground, inching my way to the top of the cellar, trying not to make any noise. Looking down the stairs, I saw shadows moving. I had to find a way to get them out of there. Maybe there was some kind of circuit breaker panel in the house I could use to turn off the power. Reluctantly, I slowly left my position and began the weary journey back to the farmhouse. A shiver ran down my spine when I realized the old lady was dead, and so was her husband. What a shame. He seemed like a pretty decent guy. Only a real gentleman would take his best tea set out for guests. I went to the bushes and jumped over. The farmhouse was in a terrible state. The fire, believed to have been caused by a gas explosion, had destroyed half the second floor and left black burn marks everywhere. I approached the back door. It was blown off its hinges. I walked into the kitchen. I was standing at the scene of the crime and also the place I was most terrified of. It was creepy. The ceiling in the living room on the other side had collapsed. There was no way I was going to get in there. The gun safe was in the living room, halfway fallen through the floor. It was also taped over. It looked like the police had tried to open it but couldn't. I found a door in the kitchen that didn't seem to be affected by the fire and opened it. Inside was a staircase leading down to another basement. Why do these people like to keep everything underground, including the bodies of intruders? I slowly walked down, turned on the switch, and lit up the dim room below. On the shelves were all sorts of dry foods, washing powder, cleaning supplies, even a wine rack. M was right when he said that couple made a lot of money from their land. The place was overstocked. I saw a circuit breaker box next to the stairs and another one right next to it. I opened the circuit breaker box and looked through the homemade labels that listed the different rooms, including the warehouse basement. Great. The other box made me curious. It had a lock. I looked around the basement for the key. The shelves were a bit dusty. Nothing special except for boxes of dry cereal and canned goods. After a few minutes of searching, I found the wall near the stairs had boards that looked a bit loose. I tried a few and found the third one from the left pulled out easily. There was indeed a small passage underneath. Removing a few more boards, I saw a tunnel under the stairs, along with a shelf with a key and a small safe on it. This couple definitely had a lot to keep safe. I took the key and tried the box mounted on the wall in the basement. It fit. Inside, it looked like there were spare keys for all the locked doors in the house, including the cellar in the warehouse. There was also a piece of paper with the code to the safe, 553-0117-19911, the ammo safe, 553-011917-111, the money safe, Dad's birthday and our 50th anniversary. The last line made me feel warm and sad. They had been together for 50 years. It was sad that they were caught up in this. I got the spare key to the vault door and the list of safe codes. I walked back up to the stairs. What I was about to do was extremely illegal, and I was panicking. The others might have had weapons, and I didn't want to take any chances. Luckily, I was wearing wool gloves that day to keep out the cold. Otherwise, my fingerprints would have been everywhere. I opened the safe and saw the shotgun lying there. Was I really going to do this? It was a double-barrel shotgun with a long barrel and looked quite heavy. After lifting it, I realized it was heavier than it looked. I was surprised the old lady could carry it. I pulled the latch on the side and the barrels turned down to reveal the ammo compartment. There was also a safety pin. I put it in the safe position. I opened the ammo compartment and took out the only ammo box, which had 12 rounds. I put the box in my backpack, took 2 rounds out, and loaded them into the gun, then closed the barrel. I cocked the hammer, still holding the safety pin. I locked the safe and put the safe code back in the box mounted on the wall in the basement, closed and locked it. I remembered the tunnel. I went back to the empty compartment and looked into the tunnel. It was high enough for a person to go through without bending. Could it be that this old couple dug the tunnel themselves? I saw a sketchy sign on the wall. It said warehouse. I hesitated. I pulled out my flashlight, put the gun down so I could use both hands. There was no way I could shoot with the flashlight, and I also couldn't go down the tunnel without a light. Then I suddenly remembered the warehouse. Surely there must be something useful in there, right? There were zip ties. Reluctantly, I left the gun in the empty compartment and went up to the stairs, leaving the house, heading towards the warehouse. Remembering when I hid there, that's when I realized the sensor I put there was still there. Were these devices recording? I hoped they were, but it looks like the battery was dead. I put it in my pocket, hoping to get the data when I got home. I rummaged through the warehouse, which was full of clutter, and found some loose zip ties. I went back to the basement and secured the flashlight to the barrel of the gun with the zip ties. Then I quickly ran to the circuit breaker panel and turned off the switch that said warehouse basement. Then I started down the tunnel. I was sure the others hadn't discovered this tunnel, otherwise they wouldn't have come in through the locked hatch. I held the gun in front of me, unlocked the safety, shivering a bit in the cold. Finally, I saw a door. The familiar stench made me nauseous again. I opened the door and saw, oh God, just remembering it makes me want to throw up. The 2 decomposing corpses of the attackers were lying in a bathtub in the room. This was the most horrible thing I've ever seen. I tried to hold back, suppressing the urge to vomit as I unlocked the other door in the small room. I opened the door and saw the room Jacob and I had been in last time. I raised the gun towards the desk, feeling uncomfortable as the flashlight shone clumsily. I pulled a drawer and saw it was full of files, each with a name on it. There was a file for each influential person and their children. I gathered them all up and put them in my pocket. At that moment, the light suddenly turned on. The guys had found the circuit breaker panel and turned the power back on. I looked around and saw several cans of gasoline in the corners of the room. The smell of the dead bodies was completely overwhelmed by the smell of gasoline. At that moment, I heard screaming from the tunnel. I couldn't let them get this information. I climbed to the stairs and aimed the gun towards the tunnel. I squeezed the trigger. There was a loud bang. A shotgun shell hit the basement and ignited the gasoline. The jolt made me fall to the ground in pain and confusion. I scrambled to my feet and ran to the car, throwing the gun in the footwell of the back seat. I started the car and drove straight out of there. As I left, I could see the flames spread to the rest of the warehouse. Getting home, I started checking the sensor. I found an SD card inside and plugged it into my laptop. It was full of video files, time-stamped. I searched for the most recent files, hoping to find who killed the elderly couple. And sure enough, there was a video of a hooded man pulling a device out of the back door of the house. He was in the frame pressing a button on the device, and the second floor exploded. Then he pressed another button. The device automatically retracted before he ran out of the camera's view. I had proof that the elderly couple were murdered. Now all I needed was to find who was behind it all. I rummaged through the old lady's files. They were all very detailed, documenting the lives of these people up until the day her house was broken into. I won't go into detail, but by reading them, I found out that the businessman had been doing business with the two kids before they broke into her house and got shot. I had everything I needed. I used the scanner app on my phone to meticulously take pictures of each page, then zipped it all up into one file, set a password, and sent both the file and password to M. No response. I waited a week, still nothing. I texted him multiple times. I was also emailing Jacob, asking if he had heard from M, but no response. After 2 weeks, I got a text message that said, "Ryan, if you are reading this, that means I can't post my latest post, and I can't reply because I am no longer able to do so. This message is set to be sent if I don't log into my computer for 2 weeks. That means I could have been kidnapped, injured, or dead. That was the risk I took when I started this job, and I soon realized how dangerous it was. I trust you understand. This message is with all the information I have gathered on unopened cases, including the one you helped me with. Also have the email and password to a PayPal account with a large sum of money as payment or severance pay. I also attached a post that I want you to make public to announce my disappearance. It's part of my work bio that I was going to post when I retired, but it looks like I'll have to retire early. Make this case public, as well as any other cases that I haven't made public. Send copies of these cases to the authorities. You're a good guy. If you're smart, you'll never work on this dark web again. This place is cursed. Good luck. M." I sat there in shock. I really didn't know what to do next. I texted Jacob. He got a similar message, but M asked him to destroy all traces of their work. Am I in danger too? I remember feeling like someone was following me. Everything was messed up. I gathered all the evidence from both of us and compressed them into a single file. Then I printed them out, put them in a huge stack, and named it The Farm. I had tears in my eyes thinking about him. He was not only my colleague, but also my friend. I posted everything as he asked, with the password so everyone could see the evidence. Then I wondered, how do I notify the authorities? I remembered Sergeant Church, who also felt something was wrong about the death of the old couple. Early in the morning, I drove to the police station. I carefully left the gun at home. I brought a USB with all the evidence, except that I stole the gun. Instead, it just said that I found the safe already open when I arrived. I asked to see Church and waited for a while. He finally came out to greet me. We shook hands, then I followed him into his office. I gave him the USB. "What is this?" he asked, his voice slightly worried. It is all I have on the old couple from the house that burned down. There is more behind their death. Read carefully and you will understand. What I am giving you will expose a lot of crimes. You will most likely be honored for this information, but I will only give it to you on the condition that I be protected as a witness. I almost died many times to get these things to you." He stared at me with confusion and fear. He plugged the USB into the computer and started going through the files. "Oh my God, we need to ask a few more questions. We will use your statement, but will never give you up as a witness. Understand?" I nodded. He pressed the record button and started asking a few more details as he went through the documents. The meeting ended with a short interview. He said he would send an officer to escort me home if I felt unsafe. I said I would be fine and asked more about the next steps. He said an investigation team would have to verify everything and make it clear that I was not involved in the case as an accomplice. I nodded and left after a final handshake. I drove home, hid the gun and the box of bullets in a garbage bag, brought it up to the roof and hid it in a broken air conditioner. For the next year, the police contacted me to solidify their case. They raided the drug farm and rescued the kids who were held captive. Their parents both admitted to being blackmailed. The businessman behind it all was arrested for so many crimes that I would need a new post to list them all. And as of now, his case is being reviewed, and some evidence has mysteriously disappeared. This guy might be set free. And that's why I'm posting it all on Reddit. People need to know the truth about what happened. I'm putting it all out there so that M's death won't be in vain. Even if it puts me in danger, I don't mind. This needs to be exposed. By the way, I was in witness protection and had to escape from it so I could continue posting to bring the truth to light. The truth was revealed in my last post. Over the years, I've been preparing everything to escape my current situation. This means both the police and those who are angry because I posted everything are looking for me. Luckily, I know what I'm doing. After finishing my job with M, I've done some other things on the deep web. Some of them are pretty nasty, and through that work, I have accumulated a special skill set. Combined with the money I've made, I'll be fine. Trust me. I know last time I said that was the end, but there's actually more I need to tell. However, before I can say more, I want to share with everyone my last will. My will. Dear those who are interested, you may know me under many different names. I am an investigative journalist working for an organization on the deep web. My job is to find news that the mainstream media will never report and conduct investigations that the government and authorities cannot or do not want to do. This job is inherently dangerous, so my death is not expected. I came to this job after graduating with a degree in international law. I tried doing normal jobs in law and journalism, but I immediately realized the censorship. I wanted to change that, and like many others on the deep web, I spoke up about some cases that, in normal work, could not be talked about. Finally, the current organization came to me. I committed countless crimes to expose the cases, and in one case, I had to use methods that I myself despised and regret. I saw things that could not be described and reported on the true horrors. The people who worked under me were all good, hard-working people and didn't ask too much. Their involvement in my investigations was simply due to my job requirements. When I die, they will be paid in full to stop all work on my cases. Please do not retaliate or harm my sources and staff. All the cases I worked on will be made public. Any criminals will be exposed, and my legacy will not die with me. In the end, my friends, please do not mourn my death. Do not continue to investigate my cases. Continue my legacy. Find peace by exposing criminals that I have not been able to touch. My killers were most likely one of the subjects I have investigated or am investigating. So, for your safety, do not try to investigate them. Just expose new people and organizations. I am dead, but do not let my death be in vain. Good luck. God bless. So that's it, folks. I'm a fugitive now, and M is gone. But this isn't the end. I'll continue his legacy as promised. Hopefully going public will put the people behind the drug dealing and murders in my town in jail. But that's just one case. I promised to post all of M's unfinished cases, and I will do so. I'll also try to find the person who killed M. I'll take you guys along on this journey. And for those wondering, my work on the deep web didn't stop after M passed away. I owed Jacob a job, and after that, I've worked for many others over the years, completing countless missions. If you guys want to hear about a specific job, ask in the comments. I've done almost everything except the really extreme. I'm not a killer. With me being hunted by both the police and those who were exposed by my work and M's, I'll keep you guys updated. I plan on flying out of the country to escape the pursuit. By the time this post is posted, I will have arrived. I have safe bases at my destination, and there is a lot of work to do there. I thought I could leave the deep web forever, but it turns out I can't. I know I received a final payment from M, but I can't share the details because the amount is easily traceable, as it is in the 6 figures in British pounds. I just hope I don't suffer the same fate as him. But I've made enemies with many people on the deep web, and even more so by posting my work publicly. It is risky, and I hope you understand that. In the next few days, I will start releasing case files and investigation notes. I will see you guys later. Last time I said I could finally take a break, but I am dipping my toes into the deep web again, and I may be dragged deeper. See you guys soon. I have to repost because the previous post was deleted by Reddit, so sorry if you clicked on the deleted version. Until next time, it's another long night without sleep.